several weeks ago, I was working with a couple and we are trying to do a very simple exercise. And it's actually one of the cooler exercises that comes out of Dr. Gottman's research, where if you listen to your spouse and how their day was, and you just simply validate it, at the end of that, there's understanding and there's connection, and it's really kind of beautiful. And the whole point of the exercise is just to reduce stress for each other, to be there that way. Well, you'd think that'd be pretty easy, right? So we started, and actually I do this with a lot of people, and it's shocking to me how easily this thing goes awry. The assignment, the goal is very simple. You just listen to your partner talk about their day, something that happened, and then you say, okay, so it sounds like this was XYZ for you, and that was really hard. And you ask questions as they're talking, and you're like, oh man, and you have some empathy. That's it. Well, what happens typically in couples that are struggling is this, it becomes about them, right? They're listening to their partner, and maybe you can relate to this. You're listening to your partner talk about something that they did at work, and maybe it's something awesome that they did, where they showed up and they listened well and they led a situation at work really well, and they're pleased with the outcome. And inside your head, you hear a thought. And the thought's something like, well, they're never like that with me. How come they're like that with them? They never. And then you think of the thing they did yesterday morning that you haven't quite recovered from. There's been no repair attempt. And the next thing you know is you find it nearly impossible to be with them where they are in the now and validate their experience. You find yourself thinking all the terrible things about them. If you can relate to that at all, know that you're not alone. That's actually a really common thing that people that are struggling in their relationship experience. What you don't know is that what's happening is spiritual warfare 101. Like there's that piece of it. Because where do you think those thoughts come from that remove you from the now of potential connection with your spouse? Like if you were the enemy, what would you want? Well, you'd want to have you think bad things instead of being there supportive style for your spouse. And so as you navigate that, then you go, oh, so what do I do with this? How do I show up differently, right? Well, the first thing is stay present. Stay present. And the second thing is fight the thoughts. As those thoughts come, you have to say, no, not going there. Stop that. And sometimes even aloud, you're just like, in the name of Jesus, go. You have no right to be here. And you stay fully present. Now, your spouse may think you've lost your ever-loving mind if they're not a Christian. But at the very least, you'll be able to be present and focused with them. Now, what's really cool is there's data behind this. There was a guy, I'm not going to repeat his name because I don't like how the Gottman organization talks about this dude. I don't think it's honorable. But what happened, and maybe it's just information for them and him, but he ran this training course for married people. And then 2 years later, he went back to them to find out who's still using what he taught them and how's it going. Well, none of the couples were using anything he taught them. 50% of the couples were doing great, though. And of that 50%, they had all stumbled on this particular stress-reducing conversation. And we call it debrief your day, because then that opens up the conversation for more than just the stressful event, because people need to share joy. And by the way, most marriage intensive stuff out there teaches you to deal with conflict. And we have done that. We've taught people how to deal with conflict, but there's more to it. If satisfaction in the marriage doesn't go up when navigating conflict skills go up, or the impact of conflict goes down, right? Just because you have less conflict or you're better at it doesn't improve marriage satisfaction. There are very specific positive things that you have to put into the relationship to have a good outcome, to have a good marriage. If you're not doing those things, And debrief your day or stress reducing conversation is one of them, right? If you're not doing those, if you don't know what those positives are, you're still going to be dissatisfied. You're still going to be lonely. So anyway, so this guy, Dr. Gottman, I went to him and was like, well, you're going to publish a paper, right? And he's like, no, this wasn't my hypothesis. I don't care. He's like, yeah, but this helps people. And the guy came back and he's like, no, you can have it. I'm not going to do anything with it. So Gottman's people grabbed onto it and they teach it as a stress reducing conversation. And it really does help. But what I've noticed in working with couples is that they can't even do that. You can teach them that method, but they can't do it. Like even after working really, really hard, they need help. And so that's one of the things that we do with the marriage intensive. We help people navigate that. It is surprising that even 2 minutes of listening to your spouse, there's a ton of negative thoughts that will show up in your own mind. And so what do you do with that? Because it 100% of the time gets in the way of the connection that you're longing for. Well, we can help you with that. One of the easiest things to do is to take that thought captive, right? Grab it, tame it to the mind of Christ. Like, is this holy? Is this even now? Is this current and present now? Because you may be thinking of the thing that happened 27 years ago when you were at your mother-in-law's and he said XYZ and you're still upset about that. So think about that, because the enemy wants you to be historical. The enemy wants you to be future-based also, in that, well, he never does this for me. He's not going to do any of this for me either. I could validate him, but he's just going to be grumpy anyway, whatever. And I'm saying he as if it's, the men's fault. It's not. It is women doing this as well, ladies. Like inside our minds, in the Western world, that is where the battle rages. We think, you don't hear a lot of churches talking about spiritual warfare. If you do, that's all they talk about, right? Like there's this pendulum swing. It's either all or nothing, even in the American church or the Western church. And what's really true is that we're not hungry, most of us. We're not naked. We're not cold. We're not disease-ridden. We're not suffering like third world countries. And so in the Western world, the battlefield is in the mind. And if you don't know how to win that war that rages, if you don't have those skills, it doesn't matter if you learn how to settle conflict. You won't change your marriage. You'll stay stuck. So I hope this helps today. And if you haven't thought about this, please run over to our website, greaterimpact.org, and grab our free PDF. It's a little download called Stop Walking on Eggshells. It'll help you navigate some of these things and tell you some of the key elements that are necessary for having a relationship that really glorifies God and brings you the joy and satisfaction that you're longing for. Most people think, well, if I could just solve problems, if I could just do conflict better. No, the data is in. It's not enough. We know how to get you to the place that's farther up the ladder. It is the place of shared dreams, shared meaning in life. And that is where joy lives consistently. So hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day.